Peace creates comfort, but hardships create conquerors. The most dangerous leaders in history usually came from unstable worlds. Now, stable societies create cautious leaders that doesn't take risk, and this causes the expansion of empires to generally slow down and safety of the empire to be at risk. And this caution generally happens because of fear of losing comfort, fear of losing your comfort zone, your comfort bubble. And aggression generally starts to wear down and people become less and less aggressive. And they do not have the mental capacity to be able to make aggressive choices. And they choose to protect stability over taking a risk and maybe having an expansion to the empire. People with comfortable lives lives generally doesn't gamble anything, and because of this fact, these kind of things eventually causes problems for the empires, because if you do not take any risk, then how are you going to continue? Because you founded the empire because you took a risk. There will be no country that can stand as they are without taking any kind of risk. You have to take risk. This doesn't just affects our individual lives, but our countries too. Like there will be eventually a situation at hand, a geopolitical situation at hand, where you are required to take a risk to maybe secure the future, or maybe have an expansion, or maybe something other else. But generally speaking, you have to do that. Like that's a fact rather than some kind of argument. Now, when it comes to ambitious people, when survival becomes normal, fear disappears, and because fear disappears, people that are raised in chaos become obsessed with control and survival. And people, because people got raised in chaos, they tend to get obsessed so much with control and survival that this affects their decision making and makes them take risks to rather than secure secure their comfort zone. They rather take risks that secures their future, and that's a very big important fact. And these kind of things happens, these kind of chaos happens because of poverty, civil wars, instability, and survival mindset generally. Now I do think that you guys understand poverty, civil wars, and instability, but when I say survival mindset, let's say I will use my own Turkish heritage, to explain certain things. I hope you guys understand, but let's say you exist here where there is basically very less habitable places, and you have to constantly be on move, and there is a lot of enemies around you, and you have to constantly be moving, and you have to be aggressive because you can't farm, you can't do things like that, so you have to attack people that are around you, like China at example. And this is what we call survival mindset, because you are raised in such a uninhabitable place that this causes you to have this mindset of survival, where future comes at a higher priority than right now, because your right now is pretty bad. Like it couldn't be more bad, probably most of the time. And because of this understanding, because of this mindset, people becomes ambitious and dreadful and generally have traits that we can say as they tend to be brave. Just doesn't really isn't really the survival mindset understanding. In fact, maybe arbitrary would be better for this to make you guys understand, and vengeful probably because of survival mindset. And these kind of maybe sadistic, and these things are bad things certainly, but at the same time it causes you to survive, like callous and stubborn. These kind of things allow you to survive in uninhabitable places that normally human beings cannot actually survive. And if you lose, you don't have to have this mindset, but you have to have parts of it even when you found an empire. And I think one of the clear examples is both the Roman Empire and Ottoman Empire. These empires lasted long because they eventually came to understand that there has to be some parts of the survival mindset has to be inherited so that the empire can keep continuing on systematically. And they introduced systems that caused people, and especially ruler class itself, to have a survival mindset. And because of this mindset, these empires lasted longer than most of the empires in history. And this is a very important fact when it comes to these systems. You have to have a system in place that keeps your empire basically in check on the matter of people's basically traits, because your ruler's traits very important in real life. If you do not have some kind of system that produces your heirs to your thrones, or any kind of system that ensures certain traits like brave, maybe just, maybe diligent, so that they would raise development. And you need to, like, that's cultural, but you do need some kind of system that makes ruling caste have this part of the survival mindset so that they would inherit certain traits. Now, chaos doesn't create peaceful leaders, it creates survivors. And survivors tend to be more important than peaceful leaders. Peaceful leaders are important because you cannot just attack and just constantly have these hardships that you're going on. Certain times you do need peaceful leaders. However, survivors tends to be much more better for overall than peaceful leaders, because even though they do things that you and I maybe not agree for, even though we do not agree, that in the end of the day, that most of the people, or the general overall people, tends to be in the benefit. And you can see that in the late times of empires like Roman Empire and Ottoman Empire, and probably currently America, that you can see that people in charge do not have this kind of understanding. They do not, the systems that allowed the successors to have like just trait, the diligent trait, the brave trait, these personality traits are not inherited by the new ruling caste. And because of this, even America itself is actually going down. And America itself had a system where it created a certain personality people and upholded them. And yes, they tend to be sociopaths, correct. However, they tended to be greedy, they tended to be much more action takers, they tended to be much more diligent, like JFK existed. Like currently Trump basically causes the America itself to look very bad, but JFK was an American president. But there were systems in place that allowed certain individuals that had certain personality types, which was much more fit to be leaders, to be in charge. And these systems eventually corroded, like how it happened my our empire, which was Ottoman Empire, in Roman Empire. Most of the empires, eventually, if you look at their history long enough, you will realize that they had certain kind of system in place that allowed certain personal people with certain personalities to rise to power, and these systems eventually corroded down, and people that shouldn't be in power were in power. And I will be giving Trump as a very good example. In unstable systems, extreme personalities rise faster, and extreme personalities are personalities like arbitrary, gluttonous, and lustful people that focuses on generally not raising, that these kind of people don't tend to do anything that raises overall sorry, why couldn't I say that, overall lifestyle in their countries, in their empires. And the violent environments generally reward ruthless people, and these ruthless people eventually becomes leaders, and these kind of stages in empires and cultures times causes them to be militarized cultures, and they tend to gain their power through force. And there are many examples to this, Mongol Empire and generally post-war dictatorships, but I have one that is I think very good, and that is French Revolution. And after French Revolution, Napoleon coming to the power and being the emperor of their lands. Now, was emperor as the emperor, Napoleon as the emperor, was he insanely good? No, but if you look at France's history, you will have a very hard time finding someone that was as successful as Napoleon, because these people grow up in times of uncertainty and chaos and instability, and this caused them to be ruthless. This ruthlessness combined with their risk-taking personalities caused them to be the leaders of their countries. And if you look at French history, you will realize that they didn't produce this kind of people a lot, and because of this, they're historically they weren't much of the main guys. And if you look at certain times in histories, you will realize that there are the main guys, which basically protagonists of the show time period. And countries like France, even though very important, didn't really produce these kind of people. However, when French Revolution came, and from that French Revolution, Napoleon came to power, they produced someone that eventually made their way to history in a very big, important way. For some kingdoms, conquest isn't ambition, it is survival. Now, this happens because some societies become expansionist because staying still feels dangerous. Again, I'm going to give nomads as very clear example, because if they stayed in here without that technology in their historical time frames, it was going to be very bad. And this kind of things happens because of resource scarcity and insecurity and permanent war mentality, and that generally caused by the uninhabitable places they are on. Basically unlucky spawn, like that. It's going to be funny, but it's basically an unlucky spawn. And this causes them to have raiding cultures, constant border conflicts, and these kind of constant expansions are required because they don't have resources that other empires and other cultures have, and they need to constantly go to and either raid or either constantly expand their borders to the point that they spread their both the culture and their lands to the point that they would find certain resources like farmable lands and inhabitable lands and such. and that's a very big part of these constant war mentality cultures, or was, because currently we are not like that. People become radical when moderation stops solving problems, and people tend to accept radical ideas when normal systems fails. And again, if you are interested in history, you can see these kind of things in Seljuks late, like the time around the times that they were basically falling off. You can see it on Ottoman Empire that basically engulfed the entire here. You can see it in Byzantine Empire. You can see in Holy Empire. In their late times, normal system starts to fail, bureaucracy starts to fail, and radical ideas like nationalism, revolutionary movements, and these kind of extremist ideas are much more easily acceptable by people, because if they look at, let's say, where was the place that had the flooding? Was it Louisiana? I think it was Louisiana. People witnessing these kind of bureaucratical systems failing their lives and causing them to not be able to basically exist as a human being in their country. These kind of things basically clicks something in their brain that allows them to accept very radical ideas very quickly, because they basically experience what we can call as collapse of moderation, much importantly, desperation. And do not forget that if you are desperate enough, you will accept everything, and the matter of that context is time and how brutal the desperation is. Like, what are you being tested? What's the hardships that you are currently going on? And if they are bad enough, and if they constantly happen long enough, you will say yes to the things that you yourself will not believe that you said yes to. And you can see this kind of thing that when certain American white individuals go to prisons for things that they did. Let's say they were very nerdy, very not the kind of people to join Nazi gangs. These kind of people, because of their desperation, because of their need for survival, even though they were very let's say they were like basically nerdy. Think of the most nerdy person you can think of. Glasses, thin body, not that tall, and he was like someone like that, and he goes to prison in America, and now he comes out and he has Nazi tattoos. The glasses are gone. He has his wall. His wall, who is completely changed. Like you wouldn't be able to understand who he is. And if you show their transformed versions to their older versions before themselves went to prison, they wouldn't believe you. They wouldn't believe that this kind of thing happened to them. They changed this much. But the truth is, if you're desperate enough, you will accept such a extreme radical ideas that you yourself will not believe. Comfortable societies create stability, but unstable societies create people willing to reshape the world, and history is usually changed by the second group. Have a great day. Please like and subscribe and click the notifications bells. Most importantly, have the best day in the world.